does it say recording on the screen somewhere? Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right,
It's recording.
Awesome. So you can think of a class as any, as Ankur said, as any real world object. I just kind of run some things through. So in Python, if I just want to say like first name equals Tom, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Oh, that's not zooming in. And just say like age, 34. I'm gonna, let's say that's good for right now. And then I just wanted to print the type of first name. I also want to print the type of age. I'm going to open up the terminal. So I'm down here in the terminal. And if I ran this, so Python OOP review, and I click that, notice how we have a class string and a class int. So again, Python is an object-oriented programming language. So the string is a string class. This integer is an int class. What Noah made today with a dog would be a class dog. So just keep that in mind. So everything's pretty much a class. But as I mentioned earlier, that you can think of a class as any real world object, like a noun, a person, place, or thing. So just think of a class as a noun, a person, place, or thing. So we can keep, it can be a dog, it's an animal, it can be a person, it could be a student, it could be an instructor, it can be a building, it can be a ball, it could be a bunch of things. And each individual object has specific attributes on it, which Noah mentioned. There's a thing called like class properties or class attributes or class variables that are available to all instances of the class. So we also get this term instance. What is an instance? So let's just like keep things simple and create a person class. So when we actually write class person, we're essentially creating a blueprint or a template of all of the attributes, methods, just all the different information on that is created when we create a person class. So if we wanted to like think of, I don't even like, if you think of it like a person, right now, we're going to be creating like a blueprint or a template. So we can like, if we wanted to create or manufacture a bunch of people, we can go ahead and create a bunch of people. So there's these things called class variables, which, so I'm going to say like as number of eyes equals 2. So anytime we manufacture or create an instance of a person, every single person already has a default number of eyes, generally 2. You can say like number of legs, when we like 2, number of fingers, like just say 10. So these are called class variables up here. Any questions on that? And we can access these class variables by just printing the person dot number of eyes, printing number fingers and number of legs. Just so I'm down here. So I can access the person just by executing the word person, number of eyes. So Python. So we got 2, 10, and 2. That's just the number. So we haven't actually declared or an instance of a person yet. We haven't created a person yet. But let's actually create a person first. So let's just create Tom. So I'm creating Tom, like I'm a person. And just like we normally invoke methods, in order to create a new person, we can invoke a person class. But we're not passing anything in yet because right now I don't have a name. I don't have, or like for this example, there's nothing unique about Tom yet. The only thing that I have is eyes, legs, and fingers. So I can print I'm just going to the type of Tom, like what, what do you think this will say when I print this out?
Person.
I'm sorry?
It's going to say person.
It's just going to say person.
Class
Well,
person.
class person.
Yep. Yeah. So let's clear it. There we go. Class. We just get this under main. Don't worry about that. That just means this is the program that this is exists in, and we get person. Cool. And we also, Tom has like the number of eyes, number of legs, number of eyes, and number of fingers. So if I come down here in the terminal, I get 2, 2, and 10. Cool. So the class variables are available to every single instance of the person class. So I've got, let me bring that up, Tom dot number of fingers, and now I've got another person instance, John, and I do John dot number of fingers. And so this class variable is shared between all the instances of the person class. Questions about that? What questions do you have about that?
I had kind of two quick questions. One, is it worth kind of looking up the similar syntax for JavaScript for this stuff, or are we pretty much going to only do this in Python?
So we will cover it in Java. So JavaScript is technically written in an object-oriented programming or object-oriented way. However, when you're executing JavaScript, up until recently, it wasn't best practice to use object-oriented programming in JavaScript. So it's rare. It's not rare, but you generally kind of want to stay away from it unless there's an architecture or design purpose for it. So you won't be really doing this in JavaScript. We will show you it once we get to React, because in React, the old way React was written, they did use object-oriented programming and as well as functional program. You can do either or. But now the way React is going and just the way JavaScript was intentionally written or originally written is to be written as a functional language. So React is going more towards a functional language or library or framework. So yeah, don't worry about it in JavaScript. There are equivalent to it, and there are equivalent syntax in JavaScript. If you want to, you can, but just going forward, it's primarily all going to be in Python, like OOP in Python.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that answered my second question as well. So
cool. So this class variable, these class variables, so they're available to every instance of the person class. Every instance of a person shares these properties. So right here. And now, every time we create a new person, there are unique properties about each person. So like I have a name, my name is Tom. Everyone has their own unique name, gender, occupation, their age is different, their race, just all kinds of things, where they grew up, their location, just social security number. Everyone has unique attributes. So we can create unique attributes for each person by using this def dunder init method, which stands for initialize. So anytime we initialize a new class, this method is automatically called. So we don't have to manually invoke this method when we create a new person. So let me just comment this stuff out. So in every single instance method, or in this dunder init method, this initialize method, it always takes in a minimum of self, and this will be coming in as the first argument or first parameter. And then we can say like my name, occupation, age, gender, gender, etc. And now, in order to make each individual like store this name, occupation, and age and gender in this object or this instance, we can do the word self. The self keyword refers to the instance itself. So self.name equals name. And I can do self.occupation, age, and gender. So it's generally best practice. So whatever you're passing in here, also to name the same, just have these be called the same thing. I can essentially call this like first name as well, but you generally want these to be called the same. So what we're doing here is declaring what are called instance variables. The self dot keyword refers to the instance of the class or the instance of the object. So anytime, if I were to run this, so when I create a new person, a new instance of person, it automatically invokes this and it expects 4 different arguments to be passed into it. And if I don't pass them all into it, it's going to throw an error. So if I run Python OP review, look right here, I get a thing that says on line 14 in OOP review, here's line 14, said tom.person, the dunder init method, missing 4 required positional arguments, name, occupation, age, gender, etc. So I can say like Tom, occupation, instructor, age 34, gender, male. So now if I run that, clear that, everything worked, great. So now I can do tom.name, age, occupation, and I can print all that. Come down here and clear the terminal, run that again. I get Tom, age, and occupation. Now these are unique to the Tom instance of person. Questions so far about instance? Go ahead.
Is there any way to assign those inputs as or those arguments as an input? Like to take an input from a user and then assign it to those?
Oh, so what I can do, so down here in the terminal, if I run it, take it in as an input. Is that what you're referring to?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, you can do that by essentially doing self dot some input and then actually running the input is, I think that's what it is, right? Input, I don't know what you want to put in here. A hair color. And then say like hair color. So what will happen is, so again, this dunder init is just like a method. You can put anything in here. You can execute logic in here as well. You can do if statements and all kinds of stuff in this dunder init. You can do that. There's nothing preventing you from doing that. So if I were to run this, clear that. So it's going to run. I'm going to say Tom, instructor, 34, male. And then it's also going to come down here and be like, hey, take in an input. Or it should. See that. See right here? Cool. I can say, actually, before I do that, I'm going to clear that and just print the hair color. Cool. Now I'm coming here, taking hair color, brown, click enter. So now it outputted Tom, age, occupation, and then the hair color. And so it assigned that input to that hair color. Or to
Question
that.
for you.
Yep.
Is there a way to list the instance variables of a class?
Yep. So like the value or what's available.
What's available?
So in that, you can do the help that Anchor did, or you can print the directory of just say like Tom or like the person. So if I run
Okay.
that, it's going to list all, not just the instance variables, but like, okay, this is a little different, but these are all the built-in Dunder methods in
Sure.
class. But at the very
And
end,
I could just do a quick remove anything that starts with underscore
yeah,
if I
but
just wanted to get the rest of them.
yeah, usually all the instance variables, class variables, where do they go? Oh, maybe, oh yeah, so I did person, so, but if I did Tom, where is it in there? Where is it? But if I did, yeah, so if I did Tom, then I get the occupation, the name, age, and gender. So you can do that way. Cool.
Is there, because that would be a way of determining if those had ever been instantiated or referenced
Yeah,
if you weren't declaring a default value for any of them.
right.
Cool, thanks.
What other questions do you have about instance variables? So the instance variables, so instance variables are unique to each individual instance of the person object using the keyword word self. Self dot whatever. Cool. All right. Any questions up until this point covering instance variables, class variables? All right, let's talk about instance methods. So we have these variables. We also have these class variables, but now let's create some instance methods. Now these methods are just like any other method you would write or any other function. You know, in Python they're called methods, in JavaScript they're called functions, but these are called instance methods. These are methods that belong to the instance of the person class. So I can do self. I can say hello, and these instance methods take in a minimum of one argument, which is the self keyword, which references the instance of the person class. So I can say return f string, hello, my name is, and now what's unique about these instance methods or instance variables is that I can access these instance variables anywhere within the class. So I can do, and all I have to do is call self.name. And the reason why I'm able to access the self.name is because I'm essentially passing in the self keyword inside of this say hello instance method. So this is an instance method. So you can call these methods on each individual instance of the class. So right here, I created a new instance called Tom, or a new instance of the person class called Tom. And now I can actually invoke tom.print hello or say hello. And now, again, this is just a method, so I need to invoke the method by doing the opening and closing parentheses. And now I can just clear that. So hello, my name is Tom. And if I wanted to say like John, what is he? So John, occupation, he's a senior or a software engineer. I don't know how old John is. Say he's 30. And he's a male. And now in John, I can also invoke the say hello. And run that. And it goes, hello, my name is Tom up here. And hello, my name is John down there. Question about this instance method. So, because each person can talk, so each person is unique. So when everyone says like, say hello, I can be like, hello, my name is Tom. Everyone can pretty much say that. So every person can pretty much say hello, my name is, and then say their name. Anybody have questions?
Do we have another topic when we're going to talk about overloading?
No, I don't even know what overloading is.
Overloading whenever you have multiple functions that take different, you have the multiple functions of the same name that take different parameters.
No, I don't think we ever cover that. Have multiple functions of the same name.
Yeah, so say your dunder init method, you could have dunder init self with a name, you could have dunder init self with an occupation and a name, and so on and so forth. And depending on how many parameters are passed in, it would call the appropriate instance, it would call the appropriate version of the function.
No, I don't think we ever cover that.
Would you mind giving that an attempt here?
I've never even done that before, and we don't cover it in the class.
Okay, I'll play with it. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Some other things you can do in these these instance methods. So everyone has a birthday. You can even change the values of your instance variables. So I can say like self.age equals self.age plus 1. Then I can just return an F string. My new age is self.age. So if I come down here and instead of printing hello, I print Tom dot, what is it? Increase age, and I just invoke it. If I clear down here, I'm going to comment out the John's say hello method and Python OP. So now my new age is 35 when I initially passed in a value of 34. And I can run that a bunch of times. And now 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Questions about being able to manipulate instance methods from or using instance, being able to manipulate instance variables from instance methods. You can also like change jobs, def dot change jobs, and it takes in self. Again, you can also take in multiple arguments in these instance methods. So like new occupation, and then self.occupation equals new occupation. So down here, I can print Tom.new occupation or change jobs and just pass in, I don't know, instructor. I want to be a fireman or something. Or something like that. And now I can actually print Tom.occupation. I'm going to bring that up there just so you see the first occupation. Then I change my jobs and then the new occupation. Instructor, I get none because I'm printing change jobs fireman, but it's not returning anything. So I don't even need that print statement. Instructor, and now I'm a fireman. What questions do you have about the person? class. You can also declare instance variables, not just in the dunder and init method. You can even declare variable or instance methods anywhere whenever this is called, like def. Trying to think of something. I don't even know. Like address or new address. Self. Or I'll say not address, like new city. And now I can create self.city and city. Now I just created a new instance variable called city when I run the new city instance method. So this new city does not exist. This new city instance method does not exist until I execute or invoke the new city method on the Tom instance or on the instance of the person class. What questions do you have? Anybody?
For that new city method you just defined, the
Mhm.
self.city, is that something that needs to be declared like outside of the initial, or is it okay just to, for the first time, address it in that method?
So the
You need a-
self,
Yeah, like self.city, does that city need to be declared
nope.
somewhere else? You
No,
can
it-
just, okay,
Yeah, it doesn't have to, but it doesn't exist until you execute the new city
gotcha.
function method. Yep. So, but once I declare this, run new city, so let's actually run that. So if I say like tom.newcity, say I want to move to, I don't know, Tampa. If I try to, so if I do tom.newcity, because this is, or not new city, city, it's probably going to throw an error first. So I'm just going to comment this stuff out. So it's like, oh, person object has no attribute city. Cool. But if I moved it after I declare the new, like a new city, there we go. Because I executed this new city instance method, and then it actually created the city property or instance variable.
Would you usually say it's like good practice to kind of just have a default for something like that rather than have a function explicitly to add a new property?
Yeah, it's probably, yeah. So if you wanted to add a default like city, again, if you wanted to add a default, you can say like, I don't know, you can either say like none and then come down here, self.city equals city. And if the only problem is if you want defaults or if you want to change the number, you have to make sure the defaults go at the very end of the arguments you're passing in. Because it looks at the order of what you're passing them in as. And we'll get into being able to pass in multiple arguments in just like a single like information like object, where you're going to be passing in an object with everyone's information, and then you can grab all of that, and so it's kind of easier. And we'll be covering that later, but yeah, anyway. If you want to pass in, instead of having to passing all these different variable or arguments in to making sure they're in order.